Okay, welcome back. Now at a stage where I'm comfortable to build the engine. Now I treat the engine in these kits as a separate model completely to the rest of the model, because you can fit it right at the very end of the build, which is the bulkhead. In the instructions it does actually advise to fit the bulkhead as part of the joining the fuselage assembly, but you don't have to do that, and I like it because you can then work on this and detail this part without having to mess the rest of the model while it's painted and things. I've done a video on how to build this part, which is the engine mounting and the subsequent pipework, so I'll link to that. I've also done a video on how to fit in aftermarket Rolls-Royce badges. That in this particular case I've painted them red. These are going to get repainted as part of this build anyway, because I have to do that when I assemble it all. And if you look at just about every Spitfire I've seen engine wise, they're very rarely painted red. Sometimes they're silver, most of the time they're just blank. Now if you look at, don't mix them up with the American Packard Merlins, because they don't have anything on there at all. There's no Rolls-Royce badge at all. It isn't a badge, it's cast into the heads, and I suspect when they built them they just didn't do that. That's about it really. The Packard Merlin and the Rolls-Royce Merlins, British made Rolls-Royce Merlins should I say, not the Packard Merlins, they're quite a different engine. If you look at the history of how they were made, we sold the blueprints for the engines under, well, we gave the licenses to Americans so they could build them. But when they built them on big massive factories, and mass produced them on a proper assembly line. So they were more consistent as a built engine, if you like, than the ones built in this country. The ones in this country were kind of almost handmade, so they did vary a little bit. And the components that they used on the British engines weren't as fancy, if you like, as the American ones. So on the American ones you might see stainless steel fittings or polished caps on the bolt heads and things like that. You won't see those on the Rolls-Royce ones in this country. So I'm not going to over-emphasise that sort of detail on this engine, because it wouldn't be technically accurate. Not that it matters, but I might as well stick to the, if we're putting Rolls-Royce badges on, it's a Rolls-Royce Merlin, not a Packard Merlin. So again, where do we start with this? This bulkhead is the first point of call that most people start to add detail to. It's a rabbit hole you can go down. Now trying to get accurate information as to how this bulkhead should look and what components fit on there and where the pipework goes, it's quite a task actually. I'll do my best with this, but you can go a bit mad with it because you can't always see the detail you add into it. So it's why you do it. I'm doing it just because I can, and I want to see how far I can push this part of the build, because I really enjoy building these engines. So I'm going to add as much detail as I possibly can to this bulkhead to start with, and then we'll move on to the engine. So where do we start? So we need reference photographs. Now the reference photographs, when you see them online, you can't always tell which version of Spitfire you're looking at. It could be a Mark 5, it could be a Mark 9, it could be any other Mark Spitfire, and they do vary considerably. So trying to find a specific Mark 9 engine, which I think's got a Merlin 66 in it, I'm not sure, it is the first thing you need to kind of do if you want to make it completely accurate. And then the other hard part is you might see a wire coming out of a bulkhead on a picture, but you won't necessarily see where the wire goes to. So that's another part. Where do these wires and pipework and things terminate? So that's something else I need to look into. So the next stage is to do a little bit of research and get some good reference materials, and then decide what I'm going to add to this bulkhead that's not already provided in the kit and what I'm going to alter. So that's the next bit. As regards building the engine itself, you've got quite a lot of components, and if you're going to build the engine, it's all very straightforward. The page there and the page there. Now just about everything on this engine is black. The only thing that isn't black is this cooler, but this I think it's a glycol tank. That's not black, that's silver. But just about everything else is, right up to where we're going. I mean, there's these sort of things here. That component's got a mix of colours on it. Black, 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 black. Well, no, that isn't. That can vary a little bit. So I'm going to talk about that piece there. but most of it's just black. I'm going to try and, I don't like this part on the kit, I think it's quite naff. When it's painted up it looks rubbish because it's just painted silver and it never looks right to me. So that's part of the kit that I'm going to try and embellish and improve on. Not quite sure how to do it that, but that's how I'm going to do that. There's this spray bar business that goes into the top of the engine here. Now it has little holes in the top of the head and I can't show it because I don't have it built yet. And you can go and you can spend quite a lot of time trying to get all of these little pipeworks to fit in the holes, but you cannot see them once it's been built, so it doesn't matter if they fit in there or not. But what does show is the pipework at the top a little bit, so I'm going to try and emphasise that. What else have we got? Then you've got all this stuff here. Now all this stuff here has got pipework coming off it, which it doesn't on the kit itself. That one is an enigma to me. I don't want this has just got a blanked off end on it and it disappears into the bulkhead, into the firewall there, but it doesn't go anywhere, it doesn't fit anywhere, go anywhere, and I can't find any reference pictures as to where that terminates or what it connects to. It doesn't actually show it going anywhere on the kit either, so it's an interesting one. Is this kit. That can be silver, it can be green. In my case it's going to be like this, green. And then you've got the actual side walls of the mounting parts here. Now this component here, which is moulded onto that, isn't really part of this, it's part of the engine, and that does need addressing, it needs enhancing, there's the detail on that part as well. So there we go, so let's start on research and I'll come back to you. Right, before I start actually do the research, but I'm just going to show what I do with these engine blocks. If you see holes like this anywhere, just drill holes in them, back and bigger, because it's just easier to put wires into them or extra detail if you want to do that. So yeah, just have a look around it and look for holes and things. Now you'll find on this bit here, for instance, there is something comes off that there. There's other bits as well, there's a bit that comes off there. I might add tubing on this bit to bring it off, but there are little indicators as to where things could go if you want them to. So again, look at your research and don't assemble things too quickly because you might have to drill holes in stuff before you do that. Just a bit of an amusing detail that Airfix seem to show on the engine rocker box covers here. It shows the Rolls-Royce symbol that they've apathetically moulded, I think that's a good word, apathetically moulded into this component, and it says paint it red. Yeah, alright, good luck with that. You can't, because it's such a shallow, pathetic effort that you can't do that. So hence that's why we put in these here. But yeah, just think that's ridiculous. I'm just pointing out this component here. These are the instructions for building it, which is quite easy. It's just two pieces, and then you've got these two luggy bits that sit on the sides. And that bit, if you can notice in there, let focus, come on. There's a hole for each cylinder. I think it's either the fuel supply or spark plugs, I don't know. But this bit goes in there like that, which you then can't see the holes at all. So when you go to this stage later on in the build, which are these components here, Airfix then want you to put those little pluggy things into those holes in there, which is quite difficult, and you can't see them either, ever. So when I get to that point I'll mention it again, but basically you just shove them in that space and they disappear and you can't see them. So don't get too stressed about trying to get these little things into those little holes, you can't really. Okay, this is the assembled glycol tank. Do yourself a favour, just drill these holes out here a little bit bigger. Don't have to be much bigger, doesn't really matter actually, just make them bigger. And that then accommodates these two components, which K61 and 62. Now when they're still a bit soft when you glue them on, get them in the holes and just make sure they line up. So if you drop the engine into the mounting like this, and then again while it's still a little bit wet, just make sure that pipe plugs into there, okay? Again, I drilled that out a bit more just to make sure this fit in easier. Make sure these two components fit into there, and make sure that pipe fits into there. And what you could do, I suppose, is just leave that. You could just rubber band it up or tape it until everything goes, these two components set. It's alright actually, because you're going to just glue them in at this point here anyway, and then under the base there. So yeah, let's just make sure that all lines up. Okay, this is the I'm going to try and get to focus. This is part of the supercharger, which is this part here, and it has this quite fancy mechanism attached to it, which is all these components on here. Now if you look at the components, it looks pretty obvious that there's something comes off that pipe there, which I've just added a piece of rubber tube onto there because it's just easier to use that, because it's such a small hole you couldn't drill a hole in it. So I added a tube on so I can then fit a wire into it if I need to. I've also identified that there's two outlets perhaps there and there, so I've drilled two holes there, and I've drilled one in the end of that component there just in case. It doesn't matter if there's nothing goes in there when I find out later on, but it's better to drill the holes now while you can get to it than try and do them later on, because it'd be quite difficult. Okay, try and get to focus. We'll focus on black. I've painted some of the components that in the areas that you can't get to once it's assembled. I haven't done all of it, just want to do part of it so I could actually assemble it. I can't paint it all black yet because there's other components to still go on there. There's no point just scratching paint off all the time. So I've just done the bits that need doing so I can assemble these three components together. Okay, that's all the major components assembled and glued on. Just follow the reference instructions on this. There's nothing difficult about any of it really. Just be careful with it and clean all the bits up and dry fit stuff if you're not sure. When people put the engine in and they want to fit the cowling, I'm of the opinion that this box here, as part of the intercooler, this part here, and maybe the profile of the rocker box covers are a little bit high. They're probably right for the model, but when you try and put the top cowling cover on it, it tends to get fouled on this bit here and on those. Well, you can trim these down a bit. You can actually sand those down and thin them down a little bit to help maybe that fit. And you could, and some people talk about thinning this box down. I don't know how you do it really. I don't know how you bring it lower down than that. Just taking some off the top would remove the detail from here. So anyway, that's what I've seen people talk about on the internet and stuff, but I'm not bothered about that on this particular one, because I'm not even going to bother making the engine covers fit, because I don't want to put them on, because I want this engine to be seen, and I'll never put them on from a personal standpoint because I'll just have the engine on display all the time. So I'm just not going to bother going through all the hassle trying to get the covers fit and everything. And it also means I can detail these the cowling cover areas without having to worry about making them fit onto the covers, if you like. So yeah, just paint this now, and then next bit is to start adding detail. But I'll all painted up, and I've given it a coat of satin semi-gloss varnish. I just popped it in the model just to give it a bit of context. So yeah, next, as you can see, there's quite a lot. You can see quite a lot of detail could be seen at the moment on that bulkhead, but once you put the cowling frames on and things, you can't see as much. But do it anyway. So yeah, the next stage, as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, get the research done and decide where all the add-on detail parts are going to be and what I'm going to embellish, if you like. So we'll see how it goes. So part 2 coming up on this engine.